All right. Hello, and happy day. I want to welcome you to Wake Up to Your Life Magic. My name is Dr. Helmut Lucero Love, and I am so excited to be on another episode having conversations in leadership, in business, in politics, and in the world that we're not having so we can elevate our experiences as people. I'll remind you that my book is available and information and coaching at wakeuptoyourlifemagic.com. And today, my guest is the lovely Sara Hickson. Hello, Sara.
Hello. Thank you for
How
having me.
absolutely. How are you this lovely fine day?
I'm doing well. Got lovely weather here and having a good day so far.
Good things. Well, I'm very well because I'm chatting with you today, and our listeners are excited to meet a new person. And Sara, can you tell us a little bit about who you help, what you do, how you serve in the world?
Absolutely. So right now I do a few different things that they all come back to helping. So I help people in doing accountability coaching and trying to help people find their path. I also have a membership community for women who are, especially women who are in job transition, around accountability. So really trying to find that community and that team that will help you achieve. So whether you're starting a business or looking for that new job or just trying to figure out the next step, having people to talk to, having people to check in with who know what you're working on can be a huge help. That's my passion right now. And I also help companies with some products to help them help their employees reduce their tax liabilities and get extra benefits for their employees, and including things like free prescriptions and free urgent care visits and all sorts of extra benefits. And my background is in healthcare, so I feel strongly that anything we can do to improve healthcare and improve health options for people is huge. So,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have a background in healthcare as well. So effectively, Sara helps individuals, right, who are working through accountability and coaching, right? You're also helping women specifically in a group, which is just beautiful, of people who are transitioning, becoming entrepreneurs, kind of finding their way and path, and then companies in healthcare to really reduce costs, but also improve options for their employees, which that sounds like a lot of really helpful things, Sara. So thank you for sharing that. And I shared some of the website information. We'll talk about that at the end as well. So Sara, our very first question that I love to ask on our show is really about some moment, some part of your story, right, where you switched, something changed, and made you different or pushed you in a different direction. And I would love for listeners to get to know a little bit more about you through your story.
absolutely. I think the moment I switched from corporate America to entrepreneurship is I worked for a biotech company, and I had worked in government, academia, doing research, and then and moved over to biotech, and all of those were great. The biotech company then laid a lot of us off. It laid off about 800 people, and that was the
That's a
moment.
trend. That's a trend lately.
It is. I was ahead of the trend. This was back in 2015,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, I decided that I really did not want to go back into another corporate job or government or academia. So I was offered a job running a ski school at a ski resort in New Hampshire, and I packed up my apartment and moved to New Hampshire to a house in the woods. Ran that ski school for a year, and also launched my entrepreneurial journey. So I did a few different things. I launched an online art studio. My dad's a photographer, so I thought, oh, I'll sell his art. I sold art supplies, and I got into designing my own leggings. All fun, all so much fun. Um,
Wow. And were those successful ventures or just kind of a dabble and then a dabble kind of experience as you were finding your way?
it was a learning curve. I did
Okay.
sell the art supply store, uh, it, and the leggings business. COVID came along and supply chain issues, and yeah, COVID had a
Rip the legs off that, right?
it did. And yeah, so then then I started consulting with other startups and talking to them and have been in process of finding where I could help most since then. I think I've settled on some good things.
Yeah. So it's I think for listeners, it's not a clear path, right? It's got adventure, it's got learning, and it's going to stretch you, and it's going to make you into a different person. I got all that from your story. Would that be fair to say, Sarah?
It is. That transition from, so I worked in programming, statistics, data, for 15 years, and then marketing, right? It always comes back to marketing and sales when you're running your own business. So that learning curve, but I love learning. So that there's no damage to that.
And what you really realize is that it's all sales and marketing anyway, because you really, even in a corporate job, you're selling yourself, you're promoting yourself, or what you're accomplishing, what your team's doing. So, yeah, it's interesting. And it's all service too at the end, right? Helping, the serving, the supporting. So tell me a little bit about the vision you have. I think what's beautiful is you've pulled and curated this group of women together as well on top of what you're doing. What's your vision 5 years from now, right? Or 10, whatever, just something, time span like that. Like, where do you want this to go? What would you like to see in the world? Because Sara Hickson has been on the scenes.
That's a great question too. I have big ideas and big plans for
share them.
As entrepreneur in general. The ideas come,
right?
But there's a lot of space. There's a lot of space for, especially with AI coming, new skills, the job market being what it is right now. It's a time of transition for almost everyone. And by building this group, building this community, we can offer more and more. We can offer more training, more learning, have speakers come in. So I see that the community, as the community grows, we're able to offer more and more things to help more and more people. And I envision other groups. So right now we're targeting women. The group grew organically. So the people in it are like me and my co-founders. But I can envision other groups. There are other groups out there that need help too. And so
there are.
Around, then we can also focus on replicating that with another group that needs help as well.
There are. It's so interesting to me that, and I'm making a broad observation about women. It's been impressive, really impressive to me as I've been working through small business environments, group coaching, groups that are sort of self-putting together. There are various networks of women that I'm seeing aggregate across the country in these areas, Sara, like what you're doing. And it's really, it's a testament to the connectivity and camaraderie, right, that women have developed in our culture. And it's really encouraging to see. Because, as a dad of 3 daughters, I think about, wow, what's the world they're going to walk into, right? And if we're using technology to connect, support, love, grow one another, and I'll tell you the difference, right? I shared this on a recent podcast. I walked into a financial literacy education event, and the first day was women-led, the second day was male-led. And the women's was grow, connect, support, right? The men's were like, kill, conquer, succeed. And it was just it was like, wow. So it's great that women are coming together to think about how to create businesses that are growing together, right? And nurturing humanity. So speaking about that, we have a really interesting tapestry that's laid before us, right? We have a world where, at least in America today, federal dollars, we got less of that coming in or being spent. We've got AI rolling onto the scene. We have lots of projections for job savings, which, at corporate means that that's more job loss in the market. And, I think a lot of people are feeling a kind of way about the world. And those feelings are often feelings about one another, right? We say we're scared of AI, we're scared of whatever. These are fears about what we could do to one another, right? What will we allow to happen? And so this podcast is a lot about having conversation about the things that we don't talk about, the most human of things, things like our morality, our connection, our spirituality, our love for one another, and how that plays into business leadership or leadership in general. So I'd love your thoughts as to how you feel those things play in the business world today, and what does or does not need to shift for us to curate AI and this next part of our experience together.
That's a big question right there. And so from my perspective, and I don't want to necessarily get into politics.
Yeah.
I think
no politics.
No politics, right?
No politics. It's okay. We can if you want to, but you should feel no pressure to do anything. Speak your heart and mind as it is, right? Because everyone's voice and perspective is so important. And Sara, I think you have a lot of acumen and passion for helping the world. So I just would love for you to share your thoughts.
Yep. The corporate focus on shareholders could lead to a lot of the things that we're dealing with right now. Right? If stakeholders of all kinds were considered in decisions or required to be considered in decisions, that would change a lot. If their customers and their employees, as well as their shareholders, were all part of the picture, then how would that change those considerations? And that one change, I think, would make a huge difference.
Huge. I think like you hit it on like that. What people outside of, and some people can get this, right? I often say corporations have become the modern day plantations. We just have nameless slave owners, right? Every one of us who are 401k holder, right? We're just namelessly, we don't know like what's going on the floor, right? We don't know what's going on inside that corporation. And all they care about is making us, the owners, money at the end of the day. Maybe, right? There's a certain limit, right? But so that I see what you're saying, because the stakeholders of the other two are not always accounted for. And there are some really great companies that are caring about the other factors, right? But they're competing with the companies who don't.
Right. Oh, community. I knew there was a fourth, and I was
community. Okay.
Community.
Okay, so yeah, so you're saying the three stakeholders that are people, right? The employees, the clients, and then the community that we all live in.
Right. Yeah. In addition to the shareholders are important.
They
should still be considered, but not to the expense of the other three. Yeah.
So this is kind of the core of it. It's the profit versus people conversation. And I think you're right. And that is, would you agree that is a moral question, a ethical question? Meaning, and I'm not saying like, I'm just saying for us as humans, right? Like, hey, should we be running businesses that don't account for these other three stakeholders?
But if you look at companies that choose to do that without being forced to do it, they're very successful. Costco is well known for treating its employees well and taking care of its community, and is very successful. I choose to go to Costco more because I know that they're doing these things. So it doesn't have to be at the expense of the company and the profit. It can be a result of.
Which means we can vote with our dollars, so to speak. Yeah, no, it's a great conversation. Tell me a little bit about how then you feel like as you are nurturing your business and as you're nurturing other people's new businesses, what's your desire for, or how do you think that plays out in sort of this, like if you see a lot of new small businesses growing, how does that shift the game perhaps?
That is a good question. Because at that level, you're not dealing maybe with a lot of these issues. You may or may not have any employees to do.
Right.
But in planning for the future and thinking about how am I going to set this up, I can plan for a way to make sure that I'm treating my employees well, that they're making a fair wage, that they're, you know, feeling respected, and I can make those plans. And I can think
Exactly.
about the community around me and how can I help them and how can I.
Exactly. Which is why it's so encouraging, the concept of working with small business, mid-size, large. You have the ability to decide how you're going to treat your employees and the community. And so you really get to be the queen or king of your castle, so to speak, right?
You do. And you can design that culture from the beginning, even before you have
Absolutely.
those.
And guess what? You're going to learn a ton, because Sarah was just sharing, right? It's not just, there's the whole process. It looks really easy to do. And I think the truth is it's challenging, right? To balance all the stakeholders. It can be.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is.
So, and I think there's arguments for all kinds of things, like the way our government incentivizes things. I think there's interesting new business models. Some companies have gone the B Corp model, privatization. Like, there are lots of options on the table for us. But it's a great question. How about, how do you feel, Sarah, about showing up authentically, right? Which is, I think, a big theme for the conversation around some of the work you do with helping clients. As we show up authentically, um, people have moral perspectives, spiritual perspectives, ethical perspectives that they want to demonstrate more in workplaces or in business. And sometimes we kind of are like, what do you think is a common ground or a good way to be able to express those things in our business lives?
So empathy, right? If we can share, I can share what I'm about, but I need to do it in a way that respects the people that are around me and who may or may not have that same perspective. Not assuming that my perspective is the default or the best or the only way to go. And that can be challenging. Dealing with, I have business partners, we have conversations, but we have to come out of it. And here I'll say one of my big guiding factors in my life is the what's the goal, right? I'm having a conversation with my business partner, my mother, whoever, right? We don't agree, but what's my goal? Is my goal to win this argument, or is my goal to have a happy, relationship, to have a functioning business, to have a sustain this relationship long term? Maybe that means I don't win this argument.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I win the next one, but we work together because my bigger goal is more important than whatever it is we're talking about right now.
I heard you say a couple things. So empathy, um, respect, right? That other people don't have the same opinions of yours. And then the goal. What's interesting is, I think that in our society, to some degree, we've lost the ability to listen without being triggered or needing to defend, just seeking to understand, right? And I think all of that, for me, it's about like love. Like, I want to express something lovingly. I'm concerned about a moral issue or an ethical challenge, and I can present that in a loving way. And then I'm open for feedback, right? And that's kind of challenging in our world where we cancel each other. We're just like, get out of here, right? And so I feel like we often are not bringing our full selves when we silence things that say, is that really good? Is that really right? Is that really what we should be doing? Should we be more loving to one of these stakeholders? Right? We often will be silent inside the system because we're serving the profit, and therefore we just silence ourselves about what we're doing to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It can be kind of toxic, actually. Um, as a member, as someone who's gone through corporate, where you're like, oh, I really don't, do it, but you're like, but we have to. But man, I wish there was a way we could just be less profitable and more loving.
Yes. And finding what's behind what people are doing and saying and understanding is important. And we should definitely be doing that. I think on the other side, though, the awareness that words have consequences and actions have consequences. And it's not, you can choose to say that thing that, whatever it is. I can choose to not buy your product.
Right.
Or not work with you. That's my freedom. It's not canceling you. It's consequences. And
agreed.
Being aware that you can say whatever you want, but words have consequences. And that if you're not thinking about the people you're talking to and how they're going to respond to that you've lost that empathy. Yeah.
Agreed. We will attract more people with love than we will with anything else. And it's interesting to me because you're 100% correct, right? I think a lot of times if you have a question of something coming out of your mouth, there's a reason you have a question. Like there's a perception meter.
But I will say start with no offense, but
right. But I will say some people also think that the things that might offend you or me is loving to say, right? And I get to understand why they think that's loving, right? Why? And then they'll have their reasons, and I can seek to understand. Right.
Yes. Being honest can be tough in business.
Yeah.
Clear feedback that is not 100% favorable can be tough to hear.
Yeah. And I agree 150%. Like it's choose the audience, right? All business people do not need to know all your stuff at all. In fact, right, to do business with you. But as you want to deepen your relationships with partners in your business, as you want to deepen relationships with your team, you really want a loyal team, you get to go deeper. You get to realize that they're spending every day with you for hours. They are giving their life magic to you. They are giving all of their creativity and their time and their love and care to the service of what you're working on. So it's also the tool and device with which to amplify your team is the same thing that we often are avoiding talking about, which is things that drive connection. Yeah, so interesting. So Sara, tell me a little bit about any other thoughts you have on this topic regarding your area of expertise, how you approach the world, and the kinds of things you do for clients. I just want to make sure that I give you opportunity to say anything else you want on that topic.
Well, let's see. So many things, but in particular, in terms of thinking about like group for women and maybe future groups, I think that finding that idea of support and helping each other, even if we're in the same field and potentially looking for the same business or same job, there's enough for everyone. And we can work together. We can share ideas and support, and we'll all get further ahead than if we're home trying to compete and save all the information we collect or knowledge we have for ourselves. If we share and help each other, that rising tide lifts all boats. We'll all be more successful in the end.
Right, which is such an interesting counterbalance, right? So you have this world where it's like profit over people, but what we're generating is people who are connected, loving one another, supporting one another, right? Which is kind of a very beautiful picture. Wouldn't it be great if we had a world like that, right?
It'd be great. I agree. Yeah. How do we do
that?
And
it will be, because I think we will get there. I truly believe we will. Because we've come so far, Sara, right? Our people have come so far. Our ancestors have brought us so far that we get to take it forward. So we will figure these things out. Speaking of figuring things out, it's not always easy. Business is sometimes challenging and difficult. Tell me about one thing in your business today that our audience can listen to that's like, man, this gets challenging. This isn't always easy. Because it seems pearly and beautiful on our marketing pages and everything, right? But just what could you share with the audience so they don't feel alone in their struggles?
Ooh, so many things.
Right. She's like over there.
When I'm coming up with one, it's like, which one? For me, the learning the marketing, and not only learning marketing, but I mean, even in the last 5 years, the shift in what that looks like and what you should be doing is constant. So keeping up with, not like learning, but also, keeping up with the new technology and new ideas. And some of it I have not gone onto TikTok. I don't know if I'm too old. But things like that, right? So there's always new things coming out, figure it out. So I think that's probably a challenge that a lot of people, and there's a million now, right? We're on the internet and there's a million free courses and they will all tell you exactly what you should be doing. And every one of them is different. They all have the idea of so no one knows really what is the best way to do whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's true. And you have to navigate a world to figure out what, like, even just finding what does work, right? Finding what does work is a huge deal, because then you find your flow, you got it, you've got clients. That's a big deal. You found it, right? And it can change. Suddenly it doesn't work anymore, right? And to your point, there are a million messages coming at you. Try this, buy this, do this, right? And so discernment, right, is we're out in this ocean of sort of possibility. You could possibly spend a lot of money that doesn't get you anywhere. So yeah, I could see that. Discernment, the marketing, finding the right path, keeping up with all the information. Do you have any trick for how you navigate that?
Working on that. I would say, so I actually, speaking of AI earlier,
Yeah.
Have started playing with the AI agents and to work on not the writing part as much. I like the writing, but in planning things out, giving me ideas. Here's all the things I want to do this week. Put it all together in a plan for me. I found out that it can format my emails to send out a newsletter, so it could format it and get it all ready, and I just had to go in and enter the text, and super helpful. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of that right now.
Yeah, that's great. I'd agree that it's overwhelming. I would say that my add to that would be people. What's so interesting, just like the network you have, people are going to tell you what works and what doesn't work. The people who are actually doing it, the people who are in the trenches. So the larger your network, the more you're connecting, the more you're curious, right? You can avoid spending your money down a path that you don't need to go through the conversations you're having, through the dialogue, right? Through watching what people are giving you. And then by following people who are true and actually have the success, right? And it's challenging. There's you get to go down a lot of roads where you're like, nope, not them. But it's a process, and it's a process of your learning. We're trying to find who are the best mentors, right, in the space that we're in. So I appreciate that very much and relate to it. I know many of our listeners relate to it as well. Sara, our last question. I just love the idea of sharing, sharing what we've learned so others don't have to follow the same path and make the same mistake. What's an example of something you've learned in your career that you really wish, man, the hard way, I would have loved to share this piece of advice with someone else who doesn't know it yet?
So I think my big thing would be, on paper, as I'm building this, if I look back to working in biotech, on paper, that was much more successful at the moment. We'll change that, right? But at the moment, but I'm so much happier doing this, and in the grand scheme of things, the fact that I can direct what I'm doing, I can choose to follow, form this group and follow that passion and do good things. And I also help take care of my parents. So it gives me the freedom to do that. Means that making those changes, taking that leap can be okay. Can be good.
Can be beautiful.
Can be,
Right? I mean, I think it's really funny because I agree with you. It's almost like you're told that this place up in this job it's built on top of all this money that wasn't ours, by the way, right? All these other investors and years created maybe that biotech of other people's work and right, like, and then like your place in there, that was it, right? But it was there. It felt like, and I relate to this, right? Like that all happened because of a lot of other people's money, a lot of people's time, and then you're curating other people's stuff in a system that you're just a part of, which is great, contributing, right? And over here, you're creating, and I think that's really encouraging that the creating piece may feel or look at times like it's not as great as that, but in reality, it's grander in some ways because you're really doing what you want to do. You're in control more, and it sounds like it's more rewarding, Sarah.
it is.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways, it is.
that's so encouraging. That's encouraging for me as someone who's also an entrepreneur. It's also encouraging for others who are out there considering the same thing, and many of you will. So I want to remind you, it's Connex Solve. That's CONNEX solve.com. And I believe that is to work with you from a corporate perspective. Is that right? From a business perspective, individual or business. And then cupofAccountability.com, where T is TEA, like have a cup of tea. So it's cupofAccountability.com for the women's group. Thank you so much, Sarah. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. If you want to check out more about me, you could check out drhelmutlove.com, where I talk about using $100 million leadership techniques to lead your teams and strategy for your business. Thanks and have a great day. Cheers.